Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HRL TRS Season 6 Grand Finals recap, and I guess also like season as a whole recap because it kind of encompasses the whole season as well. Like we'll kind of go over that a bit too. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be the final recap of the season and last video on the channel for a bit. Obviously, been working hard on these Grand Finals videos, putting a little extra effort into them and putting them out every day for the past like week or so. And then coming out with this recap video today. And I wanted some time off for us, for all of us working on the extra stuff like the docs and like rules and tracks and all the extra league stuff to worry about. And then obviously like just like from racing in general. So and not just like for us on that side, but like for the racers as well. I think everybody as a whole deserves a little bit of time off. This season was actually I looked into it and I'll have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure this season was not the longest in terms of like how many weeks it lasted or whatever, but in terms of how many motos that we ran throughout the season, I believe this was the most. I believe this was the most races that we've ran in a single season. It might be close with just the regular season. It might be close, but I know with the grand finals for sure, it is. So that's pretty crazy. Little pat on the back for everybody that ran in the series for that because that's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty sure this is the most races that we've ran in a single season, so that's pretty awesome. Um, anyways, before we get into all of it, just one more quick thing. Yeah, so it'll be a bit of time off, bit of a break. So we'll have this video coming out. This will be the last video for a minute. So basically, like for the next week or so, don't expect anything. And then Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday of the week after this upcoming week, is when you can expect stuff to resume. I can't promise what day it'll be exactly. I just know it'll be that week because racing will be returning that week. So again, in case I'm making this confusing, next upcoming Friday, right? We have off. Next upcoming Friday, we have off, and then we'll get back to it the Friday after that. So we still have like another 2 weeks essentially on top of we already had this last week off. We still have like another 2 weeks, so a bit of a longer break than normal. But I think it's deserved, not just like for all of us like working on the extra stuff for the league as well, but just like from the racers as well, just all around. I think everybody deserves some time off, so we have a little bit of extra time off here. And then obviously I'm taking that from the video side and everything. And like the docs probably won't be looking at the docs for a bit. But yeah, that week where racing returns, we'll get back into it, and you'll see some previews and more information and stuff coming out on the next series and stuff like that. All I can say is, don't worry about it as far as like having everything set up goes, because like my priority for this like fall series that we're doing is to like not have to worry about like the forge side of things and the setup side of things as much, if that makes sense. Like we've forged so much, we've put so much work into the World of Outlaw and TRS series and bringing these back, like so much work on the forge side. It's absurd how much work we've put in on that side for these series. So I feel like we need some time off for that. And so it's like really important for me that these last fall series to end out the year are like no work on the forge side. Like it's all like tracks that are already established, already made, and we shouldn't have to worry about anything from the forge side. So yeah, don't worry about it. The tracks, the schedule, the foundation, the docs, it's all pretty much ready to go. I got it all prepared during the TRS season so that I'd have that time off and not have to worry about it. So like everything for the fall series is ready to go. You don't have to worry about that. It's all set up, and I think you guys are gonna really enjoy it and look forward to it when more stuff comes out on it. Anyways, that's I just wanted to get that out of the way early. So that's my little recap on what to look forward to. Always have to do that in these recaps. What to look forward to, what to expect in the next couple weeks. There it all was. If you have any extra questions on that, leave them in the comments. I suppose I don't think there should be anything. I think I pretty much like covered anything that you'd have a question about. But yeah, I guess if there is any, yeah, just leave them in the comments and I'll address it there. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Word to Forrest Gump. Let's get on to this. So grand finals. Man, what a schedule here. What a schedule here is grand finals. Seeing it here. 8 races, man. Craziest, talking about the regular season, I believe it's got to be for grand finals as well, the most races that we've done. And you know what it kind of reminds me of, now that I think about it? kind of reminds me of the Blast from the Past tournament that we did in Halo 5. That if you guys don't recall that little Blast from the Past tournament we did where it was like, like fan favorite tracks, and it was 8 races. Halo 5, we did it in 2019, 2020. I don't exactly remember, somewhere around there, that Blast from the Past tournament. Now that I think about it, this Grand Finals format is actually pretty similar to that. Did not think about it at all until literally right now, but yeah, actually pretty similar to that, so that's kind of cool, because that was a fun tournament, one of my favorite tournaments that we've done. But yeah, absolutely insane Grand Finals format. 8 races, 2 races on each of the games that we've raced throughout the regular season. What a crazy concept. And it started off with Amazon 1, where Amazon 1, I was able to take the win there. Real Dough coming in second, sort of setting the tone for what the championship battle was for most of the night. And then Seoul coming in third in this one. And then obviously Detail having to, work the cloud for these first few races. That was unfortunate. His night was already on the back foot from having to do that. Which again sucks, because I'm confident he would have been competing for the win on the night if that wasn't the case, and it would have changed a lot of things, because him finishing higher up would have also taken points away from people, so you have to think about that as well. And yeah, it would have changed a lot, but at the end of the day, unfortunate technical issues, and what happened, so can't really do anything about it. Just hope that we have everybody competing at the top level for the next one. But yeah, so that's kind of, how his night went, and that, kind of encompasses most of it. Because obviously from the outside looking at the regular season, and then seeing the 6th place finish in the Grand Finals probably looks weird. It's like, well, what happened there? But then when you know the context of it, it's like, well, yeah, basically raced 5 races compared to everybody else's 8 races, in a way. So, the fact that he didn't finish last in the cloud races is honestly pretty insane. But yeah, that's how Amazon 1 went. Silver Beach is where Seoul, this was the biggest upset of the night, I would say. Seoul taking his only TRS win, his first and only TRS win, coming at Silver Beach. Crazy fashion, 2 late race maneuvers, ran a great race, and also a strong start, by the way. I kind of glossed over it. Seoul on the podium in Amazon 1, and then follows it up with the win. Seoul was looking like a contender for the championship. 2 races into the night, he was looking like a contender. He was second in points, only 1 point off the lead. Great start. Luke ended up coming in second for that Silver Beach race, and then Slaunch rounding out the podium, taking his first podium on the night, regaining after Amazon 1 race that I'm sure he hoped would have went a little bit better. And then we go on to TRS, the first H2A race. And this one, as you can see, the top 3 finishers in the Grand Finals finished 1, 2, 3 at this one. And that might be in the correct order, too. That's interesting. Is that the only time that happened throughout the night? Yeah. In the correct order, yeah. They all finished top 3 at Reinhardt, but it was different order. So yeah, that was the only time. Interesting that the top 3 finishers in the Grand Finals on H2A, they all finished on the podium for both the H2A races, but that wasn't the case for the other games. Interesting. Random little stat I picked up on there. Anyways, yeah, the TRS race, great pack racing, and pretty unpredictable throughout the entire race in that pack, because there were so many contenders and so many rubber bands, like people moving back and forth. But at the end of it, Luke ended up taking the win. Real Deal coming in second again, and Slaunch taking another podium, another 3rd place in the night. And then Opix, interestingly enough, I'll mention this, the one race that he won throughout the regular season, and guess what? He gets his best finish in the Grand Finals on that track. So funny how that continued there. Then we go on to the Halo 3 races. We go into Descendium, the cross jump track. This was an absolute cheese fest. One of my favorite races to watch, honestly. I really enjoyed watching this race because of how cheesy it was. I think it was a really fun spectator race. To actually race it might have been more frustrating, but personally I had a good time in both. But yeah, I enjoyed this track a lot, actually. Again, to race and to watch, I think it was one of the more fun tracks. And that cross jump was just an absolute cheese fest, but totally worthy for a TRS Grand Finals, though. Absolutely. In the end, Real Deal took the win, a dominating win on this one as well. This was his best race of the night by far. Not as great as start, but the way he finished was very strong. And then Luke ended up coming in second, and then Detail off the cloud, takes his first podium of the night. Then we go on to Chromic, and this was another unpredictable race. The collisions and a lot of last lap. Now that I think about it, a lot of last lap cheese throughout the night for these wins. We had it on Silver Beach, we had it on Chromic, and then Reinhardt had a pretty, yeah, Reinhardt had it as well. I got collisioned in the last, yeah, so Reinhardt had it as well, and then Marvelo as well. So yeah, that's 4 races. 4 races on the night had last lap cheeses, like lead changes. How, that's got to be like a grand finals record. I know there's 2 more races in this than a normal grand finals, but that's got to be a grand finals record. 4 last lap lead changes, half the races, like that's incredible now that I think about it. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So anyways, back to it. So yeah, last lap cheese, Detail had the lead and got cheesed by a hard collision on the last lap, and then Luke and him got together going into it, and he wasn't able to recover. A little bit more time, maybe could have taken it back, but still his best finish on the night, you know, warming up after the dealing with the cloud cheese, taking home second place, Luke taking the win, and Slaunch getting another podium, just consistently on that third place. Then we go to Reinhardt, the track with the cheesy palette start. Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, Real Deal with just a strong overall race. He led almost the entire race. Luke brought it back for a late race challenge at the end, made it interesting, took the lead, and then got collisioned on the final lap, or going into the final lap. It might not have technically been on the last lap, but it was like basically the last lap. And that allowed Real Deal to get back into the lead. And again, he led most of the race and was able to take it back at the end, win the race. Luke ended up still coming in second. And then Slaunch made a late race charge to take third. He was in fifth for like the majority of the race. Got those last 2 positions pretty late in the race. So a late race charge from Slaunch to take another podium. His podium consistency was pretty crazy throughout the night in general, and especially the second half of the night. Like, he got his first 2 like bad races out of the way here, and then the second half of the night, yeah, third, second, third. So very consistent. Yeah, that's how Reinhardt went. Then we go to Millport, and then this is where Roman heated up and, you know, finally figured it out. And dominant performance, you know, no real challenge from anybody throughout most of the race. Just a really strong win. Taking the win, not getting to second place this time, taking the win. Slaunch coming home in second, the closest he came to the win on the night, but still just have to settle for second place. And Luke, close podium battle with Detail towards the end of the race, but was able to clutch it up at the end, taking that third place. And then we go to our final race at Marvelo. Great track. Like, I wasn't sure how this one was going to play out. I had some hand in working on this track. Well, little bit of influence on it. And honestly, I was excited for it, but I was also worried. I was like, is this going to play out well? Like, I hope this works, because it was very cheesy. I knew going into it, like, working on it and practicing on it, that it was, like, very cheesy. And I was like, is this going to be too cheesy? No, it was just the right amount of cheese. It worked out really well, actually. I was really happy with how this track played out. And definitely one that if we do TRS in the future, I would definitely love to return to this one. This one made for a really fun race. Yeah, crazy race too. Roman, very different than Millport. Just lurked around, made gains, got close to the lead, and then a late race, unfortunate mistake from Detail. He was going to close out the night on a dub, and yeah, just ended up cheesing the cave section, which I think I'm pretty sure everybody did at least once, cheesing the cave section in some way. It's a very difficult section to stay consistent on. Again, I'm pretty sure everybody cheesed it at some point. And unfortunately for him, it happened on the final lap, where he lost the lead to Roman. Roman ended up taking his second win in a row, and on the night. His only podiums on the night were wins, whereas the regular season, he couldn't get a win. All his podiums were not wins. So weird how that worked out. Yeah, Roman takes second win of the night. Detail comes in second, and then Slaunch again, third place, rounding out the podium. So there you go. Breakdown of every race, results, and the plus minus. The plus minuses are because of the format for this grand finals. The plus minuses obviously got pretty crazy. That just kind of has to do with how it was formatted. Because yeah, these plus minuses are nuts. Yeah, that's how the races went. We'll take a look at the schedule first because, you know, obviously there's no more races left. We'll take a look at this. Then we'll take a look at the point standings. But again, just one final look, final scroll here of how the regular season played out. And then we'll get to the grand finals. But just one more recap here. And you can see first, second, and third place, the podiums for all these races, the overalls, the points gap for the lead, how that evolved throughout the season. You know, different results that people had on different races, different games. Detail with 2 4-win-in-a-row sprees on the season. One of them coming in one night, pretty crazy. Slaunch with a late season surge, winning 3 races in the back half there. Luke ended up taking 3 races in the back half as well. Real Deal got it back together. Detail had a really strong surge in the middle. It was interesting how it worked out. It was like the main 3 contenders winning most of these first races, right? And then in the middle, it was mostly Detail and then an odd race won by a driver that you wouldn't expect. Like Optics got one here, Turkey got one here, Armada got one here. And then in the back half of the season, it more so went back to normal. Real Deal got some wins, Slaunch getting some wins, Luke getting some wins, but then Detail getting it back on in the very last races as well. And then we go into the grand finals. And obviously, really strong first and second place consistency from Luke and Real Deal to start off the night and throughout most of the night. And then Detail creeping into those podiums at the end once he got off the cloud. And then Slaunch just on the podium like almost the entire night, especially in that third place spot. The consistency was great. Seoul with a really strong start. Roman with a really strong finish. That was the story there. And we'll take a look at the points. Oh yeah, here's the race results in order, but you've already seen this in the videos, so there it is if you want to see it again, but you've already seen this again in those videos. And yeah, taking a look at the stats. Taking a look at the stats, so Luke ended up taking the 3 moto wins, Real Deal and Roman with 2 moto wins, and then Seoul with the 1. Then the podiums, the next closest driver to Luke on the podiums was actually Slaunch. Slaunch, who finished in 3rd. And, you know, not just in the points, but in the races a lot. Finished 3rd quite a bit. But yeah, he was actually the 2nd closest driver, which I think, you know, probably a lot of people probably wouldn't have predicted going into the night. But again, it was a really strong night. He just couldn't get the win. That win, the bonus points from, like, a win in one of those podiums would have really helped him and, you know, maybe got him up there with Real Deal. Maybe he would have been able to compete with him. But that being said, very consistent night. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted him being 2nd in the podiums, but there he was, very consistent, and also up there with the top 5s as well. So yeah, just great consistency out of him. It's unfortunate that he couldn't get the dub because those points would have helped him out. Real Deal, the consistency was the problem, right? It was a bit different than Slaunch. Like Real Deal was still on the podium a lot, still in the top 5 a lot, and when he was on the podium, he was able to get a couple wins, which helped him out. Those extra points from the wins definitely helped him out. So when he was on the podium, he'd finish high up, right? That was the thing. Literally, his 4 podium finishes were 2 wins and 2 second places. So when he was on the podium, he would finish high up. But when he wasn't on the podium, that's the thing. He wasn't on the podium. And that consistency hurt him. If he had that consistency, if he was able to finish on the podium every race, definitely would have been competing for that championship. So that was the difference there. Like Real Deal, you know, getting those wins, getting those high finishes when he was on the podium, but he wasn't always on it. Slaunch was damn near always on the podium, but when he wasn't able to take those high finishes as often. So that's kind of how their battle worked out and how they're like the differences between them. But yeah, either way, Luke taken 1st, Real Deal 2nd, Slaunch 3rd, and then we go down to Roman in 4th, who that late race late night surge really saved his night, because it was definitely not the night that he was hoping for throughout most of it. And then if that continued in those last races, he might have finished like behind. I think he would have finished behind Seoul. I think he might have even finished behind Detail on the comeback. Like it was just not his night. But those last 2 races really saved it. And obviously, if he could have had a better, you know, first few races, even like 2 races going better, not necessarily having to be wins, but just like some podiums, you know, maybe he could have been pretty close to Slaunch and Real Deal. But still, you know, not the greatest night overall, but I still think he'll look at it as a good night because of that ending. I think it'll still be a positive takeaway. Good momentum to go into the next season as well. And then Seoul, I think Seoul's got to be very happy with this. Obviously, a really rough season for him overall, but he started to figure it out in the last final weeks. And then he goes into the grand final, has a really strong start. Not the strongest finish, but he was still able to finish in a good spot overall because of how good his start was. And then, even though he wasn't finishing on the podium after those first 2 races and that win that he still got picked up a few top 5s after that and still had like better results than he would have during the regular season. So, again, I'm sure he's probably a little frustrated about how his night ended, but overall, you got to be happy with it. Like you just got to be happy with it. Way better than his regular season performance. And then we go down to Detail in 6th place, and obviously those cloud races didn't help. You got to think. So where is he finishing? Right, he was picking up like 8 points, around like 8 points for those cloud races. I think he would have finished at least 4th in those other races, and you know, probably higher than 4th in them, but I'm just like for argument's sake here, at least fourth. And if you think about that, that's, 8 points to 13 points. That's 5 extra points. 5 extra points over the course of 3 races is 15, and that puts him right there with Real Deal. And you also got to think, he's finishing like ahead of people, so taking points away from him. So already, just with like 4th place finishes, instead of those cloud races, just with 4th place finishes, he would have been up there, battling in the podium spot. And I think he would have finished better than 4th in those races. So unfortunate with the cloud cheese. Without that, I think it would have been a good championship battle between him and Luke probably for the night. But yeah, obviously the cloud cheese hurt too much, and it was just like too much to recover from. But yeah, I think it would have looked a lot different. And then again, like him finishing higher up would have made things interesting for like Real Deal, Slanch, and Roman. It would have made things interesting for them because, he probably would have gotten a win or two, and that could have taken points away from some of those guys in their battles. So it's interesting how different things could have played out, and how, like, even though I think he would have been competing for the top spot, how it could have affected those podium battles as well, without those cloud races. So again, I can't be too frustrated if you're him, because I checked as well, and I believe he was the second highest in points behind Luke after the cloud races. So, definitely still good performances. Just, what can you do not starting 3 races essentially in the grand finals? You got to be pretty happy, only being this many points off of the main contenders, considering you had 3 washes, essentially. You had like 3 mulligans. So what are you going to do? Just move on to the next one. Still great season overall, though, and a good comeback with 3 podiums, 5 top 5s. In the races where not on the cloud. And then Opic's only top 5 in the grand finals was his best track in the regular season, the track that he won at, TRS. So good to see that he replicated that there. If you look at the plus minus, though, going into this grand finals, he was the ninth seed, and ended up finishing 7th. So I'm sure it's not the night that he was hoping for overall, but he did better than the people he was competing with in the regular season, right? So I think you got to be pretty happy with that. Like Turkey, Armada, and Hunter, as far as the regular season would go, would be his main competition. Like those were the drivers that he was competing with on the night. And then maybe Seoul as well, but Seoul had a great night, right? Seoul had a fantastic night. He did way better, so you can't really take Seoul into that conversation with how well he did. So for the drivers that Opix was competing with going into this, I think he was looking to compete with, he beat all of them. So I think he's got to be pretty happy with his performance. Just look at it from that perspective. He beat all the people that I think he would have been expecting to compete with. So got to be pretty happy with that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And honestly, I'm sure he'll leave a comment. I'm sure he agrees. Pretty disappointing night out of Turkey. I'm sure he agrees. I don't think he's going to mind this roast at all. I guarantee you he agrees. Not picking up a top 5. Pretty disappointing night for the 6th seed going into the race here, out of Turkey. I would have expected him to pick up a podium at some point on the night and some top 5s and be a little bit closer to like Seoul and Roman. Not the greatest night out of Turkey. Armada, not the greatest night out of him either, but man, some really rough luck and some rough hits as well. Taking 1 top 5 on the night. I believe that 1 top 5 was the first race as well, where he actually had a pretty good race. He could have won that first race. Like, he led many laps. He was in that podium contention for a lot of it. He had a great first race, and then it was all downhill from there, unfortunately. That being said, for Armada, just got to keep your head up and move on. Like, I think a lot of it with TRS is the collisions. I think he doesn't handle the collisions very well, and going into the fall series, won't have to worry about that. Won't have to worry about those collisions. So it'll be more on-track battles, where in World of Outlaw, he actually did pretty well with those on-track battles. And, mostly it was a thing about not being able to finish the race as well. But I think he was a lot more competitive in that series. And I think he'd probably be a lot more competitive in the next one as well. And then for Hunter, obviously rough night, but at the same time, he was the last seed going into it. So, can you be too upset? Can you be too upset he was the last seed going into it, ended up finishing where he started? What can you do? And then obviously, like, coming late into the season as well, trying to acclimate to all the games. All these other drivers have 10 weeks of practice on all these games, and that's such a hard thing to come into as well. The fact that we're racing on all the different games, like, especially if you don't have as much experience racing on those games, like, that's a definitely a skill gap throughout the field as well. Some of these drivers definitely have different levels of experience on all the different games, and then even if you have that experience, we're racing TRS. We're racing TRS in these games, which wasn't really the case for when we'd race them back in the day. So even if you have that experience, it doesn't really matter entirely when it's TRS, and when that's kind of new to everybody as well. So that kind of like puts everybody on a level playing field as well. Again, I still think the experience matters. I just think that like reduces it a little bit. But either way, point is, all these drivers had those runs and all those games going into it. And again, it's a very hard thing to do, to go from game to game like we did in this grand finals for 8 races. Very difficult. So yeah, for Hunter, for coming in and competing, shout out to him on that, because it's tough. It's tough. I genuinely think this is one of the toughest series that we've done. Yeah, just jumping from game to game, and like, just quickly getting used to those physics during the night, and just like how many tracks we would race on a night, and having to have a good feel on all those tracks. You have to have a good feel on the tracks, as well as you have to have a good feel on the games. And then also it's TRS, so there's a composure factor. The collisions, man, like these TRS races can really test your mental. Yeah, it was honestly a brutal season, but still a pretty crazy one, and fun one at that. So hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. But yeah, that was the final results and recap for everybody on this grand final. And of course, looking at it, here's the regular season results again. So another quick glance at those. And yeah, so Detail taking the similar story to what we saw in World of Outlaw. Detail taking the regular season championship, and then Luke taking the grand finals championship. So exactly what we saw in our previous World of Outlaw series. Obviously a little bit different on the points gaps. The World of Outlaw series was just an absolute anomaly, where it was a 1-point gap for the regular season and a 1-point gap for the grand finals. So if you took Detail and Luke's totals from both, it would have been an exact tie. With the mulligans factored in, it would have been an exact tie for like both things combined, which is just crazy. Like, that's for sure never happened before. The 1-point gap in the regular season has happened, but it's rare. It maybe has happened in the grand finals. I'm honestly not sure. But what I do know for sure is a 1-point gap in the regular season and the grand finals in the same season. That has never happened. So that World of Outlaw championship was a total anomaly. And yeah, the TRS one, I'm not surprised that the gaps were a little bit more distant for both of these. I'm not surprised at that at all. Especially because TRS is so, like, there's so much cheese that can happen. Usually somebody's going to have an off night, somebody's going to have an on night. Like, it's hard for both drivers to have an on night at the same time. Yeah, I'm not surprised at that. Again, that World of Outlaw series was just like once in a lifetime. Probably we'll see if we ever have an HRL series that close again. I honestly don't. I don't think we will. Maybe for one of the two, but not for both in the same season. That being said, I still think it was fun. I still think the regular season battles were really fun for most of it. And again, with this long of a season, with this many races, not surprising that things would get pretty separated by the end of it. And the same thing goes for the grand finals, right? Same thing goes for the grand finals. If it was just a 4-race grand finals, if we just cut things at Descendium, right, would have been a 4-point gap, would have been a lot closer. But again, when you have 8 races, usually like somebody starts to separate. I mean, even at the regular season, this is actually not the case through these first 8 races, but you could pull out a different one. Like right here, Detail is getting hot. Look at how big of a point gap that would have been. That would have been like a 12-point gap right there. And that's what we had for the grand finals. So yeah, that's basically what I'm getting at. Like, it's just, I'm not surprised at the big point gaps, because of the extra races. Usually the longer the seasons tend to go on, the harder it becomes for those points battles to continue. But yeah, which again is why that World of Outlaw season was so special, because it wasn't short. And that stuff still continued. But either way, I'm really happy with both of these side series. Like, closing thoughts here. And the specific games and all that stuff. There's that as well. I'm really happy with how both of these side series went. Obviously, I'm sure most people, I'm sure there's differences between the fields. I'm sure some people preferred. I imagine most people probably preferred World of Outlaw, because World of Outlaw is a little less cheesy and a little more with the straight up battles. So I'm sure most people probably preferred it. That being said, it seemed like a lot of people still had fun with TRS, which is the important thing. If we bring TRS back in the future, I think it would work well, being similar to World of Outlaw, where it's like a shorter season, where it's like a more like compact season. I think that would probably work better for TRS. That being said, this multi-game like crazy season was just just an absolutely insane idea. Had to send it, had to do it. I'm glad we did. But if we have TRS return in the future, which we've done 6 seasons, I'm sure we'll have a 7th. I'm sure it'll return. I think that's what we'll do, is we'll do a more compact schedule. I think Solange mentioned that in one of the comments in one of the videos at some point too, but doing like a 12 like track, maybe like 2 motos or something like that, but like 12 tracks. Maybe like a normal grand finals, like something like that. So yeah, if we bring TRS back in the future, that's probably what we'll do. It probably won't be this crazy, but I'm sure it'll still be fun. And to close things out, again, congrats to Detail on the regular season championship. Then obviously I'm taking the grand finals championship, so congrats there. And then Real Deal and Slaunch for those runner-up finishes in the grand finals as well. And then Real Deal with the 3rd place in the regular season. So shout outs there for all those finishes. And so doing some work here. Yeah, this might look a little bit different, but yeah, I'm working on the docs, and here's a little preview here. Look at this, TRS in-depth stats for just all TRS all time. All TRS all time. Yeah, pretty crazy. So we'll take a little scroll through here, and obviously you can pause the video if you want. If you want to look at any of these, but yeah, I got these in-depth stats for TRS all time, pretty crazy. And as you can see in the bottom, you can take a look at some of the leaks there. Working on it for some of the other series as well. And then another idea I have is not just doing it for the series, but also doing it for the track type, right? Because obviously, like main series, right, we're racing the different track types. And I'm curious about, like, for the specific track, you know what I mean? Like, what's the in-depth stats for, like, Rallycross all time? What's the in-depth stats for Supercross all time? So there will be an in-depth stats page for our Supercross series, and there will also be an in-depth stats page for Supercross races across all series. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's probably what I'll do for these, is you'll have the main ultimate stats that you're used to, and then again, going through some of these other ones. Like right now we got the main series one I worked on. That one's pretty cool. The TRS one, of course, relevant because we just did TRS. The go-kart one, and the World of Outlaw one. That's what I've got right now. But again, the look into the future, I'm gonna do all the series that we've done. Those will have their own like in-depth stats page for all the series. And then I'll do the track type specific. So like World of Outlaw tracks, oval tracks, go-kart tracks, Supercross tracks, GP tracks, yeah, Rallycross, all that stuff. TRS, because even then there were TRS races that were like in different series. So yeah, it'll be for everything. So we'll get the in-depth track statistics and the in-depth series statistics. That should be pretty cool. I hope everybody enjoys all the stat work, because I enjoy doing the stats. It's not like, I think sometimes people have comments like that, like, oh man, I feel sorry for it. It's like, no, I enjoy doing that. I wouldn't do these stat pages if I didn't have fun doing it. So I enjoy making them. I just hope you guys enjoy using them as well, and taking a look at them and seeing these stats and all that stuff, because it is a lot of work that goes into it. But yeah, that's a little preview on what I'll be doing over the off season. We'll have the stat. I'm hoping to have all the stats, like my whole HRL like stat book vision for that. I'm hoping to have that, if not completely realized, like really, 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 really close to completely realized by the time we get into this next series here in a couple weeks. And yeah, it should be pretty cool when it's done. And if not completely realized, at least close enough to it, because again, we won't have to worry about the forge side of things as much with this next series, so I'll have more time to do stuff like work on the stats, because I'm not having to forge a damn track for the next, that we have to race in like 2 days. I'm not having to do that, so that'll give me some extra time for that. So anyways, there's your little preview at the end of it. That's everybody that stuck around to the end of this podcast recap video. That's your reward. You get that little stat preview. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. If you stuck around for the whole thing, we'll do one more preview. we'll throw a leak in there. I don't care. You're just gonna have to give me a moment here, because I have to pull it up. But we'll do a little leak. Do a little leak. Why not? I think you guys can get rewarded for sticking around that long. But yeah, we'll be going back. I hope to 2 series. I haven't finalized what I want to do for the other series yet, going into the fall. But the main one that I've been looking forward to, which we've teased multiple times, there it is. There it is. And again, this has been teased again multiple times. I swear I've been talking about the Reach throwback since like March. So I mean, it's not really a surprise. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in the Grand Finals videos too. But yeah, it's been rumored to do it, and teased it a lot. And here's a look at it, at the schedule that we're currently looking at. And yeah, we've got a lot of classic oval tracks. So you guys can pause the video if you want, take a look at the lineup for the season. And I did a little season extension recently, so it's mostly GP, mostly SX, mostly oval. But we've got like an MT sort of track with Outlaw Motor Speedway in here, so that's a little special event. And then we've got a TRS special as well, so stay tuned on what that might be. I don't know yet, but it's there, and we'll decide on it at some point. But yeah, you can take a look at these tracks opening out the season with frickin' Daytona. It's been so long since we've done a Daytona race in HRL, so that's a crown jewel race, so that'll be really cool. And a lot of crown jewel races in here too, a lot of classic tracks, awesome tracks to race at, I'm sure. And yeah, that Grand Finals, pretty great ones there too. That should be pretty fun. So yeah, hope you guys that stuck through the video, I hope this is a worthy reward for sticking through this long ass video, with the leaks at the end. But you gotta leak some stuff. You gotta leak some stuff, right? And that, like I said earlier in the video, we'll recap it again here at the end. Don't expect any content here for the next like week or so. So that's part of the reason with these leaks to give you something to think about, because there won't be any videos for a bit. But again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that return week right here. I'm not sure exactly which day, but at some point during that week, I'm hoping Monday or Tuesday, we'll bring stuff back. We'll get some hype. I'm sure you guys will enjoy the content that I'll have leading up to that first night back. Hey, maybe we'll have a return of an old video series that we need to finish. Maybe we'll have a return of that and start working on finishing that. That's the last leak I'm doing. You can figure that one out. Hope you guys enjoyed the recap, and I'll see you in a couple weeks, I suppose. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit, so see you guys in a couple weeks. Hope you enjoyed all the racing throughout the summer.